Hi, welcome to Wednesday. It is also Cinco de Mayo Day, so anybody have a margarita or go get a taco. Um, this letter came in, and hi, Marianne. This is what happened when you came out to our place, and I hope you remember us. In 1979, you came to our mom and pop grocery store in Iowa. My husband and I bought it from an older couple. They were retiring. The husband was ill, and they moved in with their son. They lived alone. They lived above the store in an apartment, not a bad size, about 1,100 square feet. After a bit of an update, we moved into the apartment. It was convenient with the store downstairs. As a side note, a lot of old towns have the store underneath and apartments above. People are probably more familiar with them with funeral homes. Usually, the undertaker lived above the funeral home. And like I said, there's still quite a few of those around. When I was pregnant with my first child, we added onto the building for more space, especially in our apartment. I guess I shouldn't call it an apartment when we were through. It was 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, now about 1,400 square feet. 2 years later, I got pregnant with my second baby, a girl. We decided to start renovating the grocery store, make it a little more modern. More freezers, a bigger produce section, even. We even hired a meat cutter uh, so that, a butcher to open up a meat department. Um, Billy was 4 and Molly was 2 when we started having problems. The contractors that were renovating were having a hard time with the grocery expansion. It was an old building. They said that's why they were having so many things go wrong. But one of the contractors, the electrician, almost electrocuted himself. He still can't figure out how the wires were crossed, and he's been doing this for 30 years, and this never happened before. Luckily, it didn't start a fire. The stuff that keeps the freezer cold kept leaking out for no reason. The front window cracked. The basement flooded. Never happened while we lived there ever. And we called the old owner. She said that it never flooded when they lived there. Then, to add icing to the cake, both kids would not stay in their bedrooms at night. Billy was upset, but not as scared of the man that Molly talked about. The man would make faces at her, have her hide in her closet. She could feel somebody pulling her hair. He would tickle her feet. He would pull her legs. She had to have tubes put in her ears from all the ear infections and throat infections she had. She told me the man had white hair and he had teeth sometimes, and then he didn't have teeth, and that he would open his mouth like he was screaming at her. We could not figure out, nobody ever has been mean to our children. We just couldn't figure out how this was going on. After 4 months of this, Molly didn't even want to eat. She said her tummy hurt. She started losing a lot of weight. We took her to her pediatrician. He ran a bunch of tests. Nothing wrong that they could find. So then, of course, he suggested that she see a child psychologist. And we started looking for one. And finally, our pediatrician recommended this man. He was a nice older man, grandpa-like, with gray hair, very nice, soft voice, not a big man, where a kid would be afraid of a big, bulky man. But when Molly saw him, she started screaming and carrying on like she was possessed. She was so scared. She was crying. She was crying so hard she was sobbing. She couldn't catch her breath. I never have we ever seen her act like this. I have a cousin who lives in Cleveland, and she heard you on the local radio station. Actually, she heard you more than once. She said, before you start giving Molly the pills from the psychiatrist, why don't you call this lady? I think only because I was so desperate I did. This is something that I don't think I really ever believed in. You answered the phone when I called and I started to explain, you don't know me, and you stopped me. You were grooming a schnauzer at the time, and you wanted to put him in a crate so that you could talk to me. While you were doing that, I remember thinking to myself, I must be crazy. Ghosts, grooming dogs, what a combination. But you listened and asked me all kinds of questions, like how old was the building? How long did you live here? Did I or my husband ever see this old man? Did the kids watch scary movies on TV? She wanted to know the problems the contractors had, all of them that I could remember. Finally, she said to me, Molly is seeing this old man, and finally, you said to me, Molly is seeing this old man, and he does have white hair. You asked, is Molly's room decorated like a princess's room, all pink, butterflies, even a sheer curtain draped over the tall posters? Yes, we did have, her bedroom was decorated like that. And she asked, in Billy's room, it's full of tractors, and he has a clothes rack that looks like a backhoe. And she said, yeah. And actually, I was surprised that I knew it was a backhoe. But it was cute. It was homemade. I remember it. And it had pegs in it so he could hang up his jacket or his anything he wanted to hang up on it. There was no way you could have known that. And you explain the digging they were doing in the basement so it wouldn't flood again. I never even told you that they were doing that. Um, as a matter of fact, I called my husband upstairs from the store, told him everything, and he said, are you sure your cousin didn't talk to her? And I know my cousin, she would not have called you. I begged you to come out the next day, but you had to make arrangements for your own children. Your husband Ted had to get a Saturday off because it was going to be over a weekend. A couple weeks later, you came out with Ted. You didn't want the kids here when you came, but you said Molly was 100% right. There was an old man here, and Molly explained him perfectly. She was going to be 3 in about 3 months. She talked early and clearly, so we could definitely understand her. As it turns out, the old man's name was Ralph. Oh, I won't say his last name. My husband and I said at the same time he was the original owner of the grocery store. He didn't like the bigger apartment. He hated expanding the store. There was nothing wrong the way it was, he said. You should just be satisfied with the way we did it. It was perfect the way my wife and I did it. You did not have to change it. Apparently, he really didn't care for kids. Billy was just okay, but Molly was a spoiled princess, too whiny. He was just trying to make her stronger by scaring her. I did the same thing to my own daughter, Kathy, to toughen her up when she was a little girl. My son was stronger and better and could handle things. Girls just don't handle things. You cleared the house, put up the quince seeds, and we never had a problem again. About 2 weeks after you left, I called the lady who owned the grocery store with her husband. Her daughter Kathy was living with her now. She was very ill, and her son and his family had moved out of town. I told Kathy who I was, and I asked her if she would like to come over and see all the changes that we had made in the building. She hesitated, but said yes. She was so surprised at how great it looked, bright, happy, she said, no negative energy. I said, "What do you mean by that?" She said, "You know, Mom is really ill now, and she's not going to be around much longer. And Dad was a good provider for us, but for some reason, it was weird," she said. "The customers loved my father, thought he was the salt of the earth, just a nice man. He helped people out all the time. If he would carry them if they couldn't pay their bill, he gave away a lot of food to people that needed it. Uh, but," she said, "for some reason, my father did things with my brother, but he was so mean to me. He would yell, sneak up on me, and scare me, lock the door so I couldn't get out, and then bang on it and scare me. He would come in my bedroom at night and shake the bed and wake me up." And my mother, I think, knew some of this stuff, but he was not mean to my mother. I guess the word I've been using is he was controlling. He had been in a really bad accident in his early 20s before him and my mom got married, and he had to wear dentures. He would take them out of his mouth and chase me around with no teeth in his mouth. My mother would yell, "Stop it." That would be the only way he would stop, and he just thought that was so funny. He just scared me. He would smack his gums together. It was scary. And so the place was always dark and depressing to me. Always felt cold all the time. And I'm so glad you invited me to see the changes. It's 1,000 times better than when we lived here. So I guess he was doing the same thing to Molly that he did to Kathy. And that's why when she saw him, she said sometimes he had teeth in his mouth and sometimes he didn't. So it was for sure the same man, Mr. Ralph. The kids, grandkids, are all good. We retired and sold the place to a young couple with a baby girl. But at least I know everyone will be safe thanks to you because Ralph is no longer here. Karen, Rich, Molly, and Billy. I do remember going out there, and I I thought it was a unique place with the store and everything downstairs. You know, this is a really good example of paying attention to your children. If your children are afraid, please listen to them. Ask them, what are you afraid of? What are you seeing? What's happening? And you know what? If you don't ask, you're not going to know. You know, sometimes they will roar at them and they'll make, roar like this and try to scare them. And you have to remember if people didn't like kids when they were alive, they are not going to like kids when they're dead, which just aggravates me because why don't they go to a house then where there's no kids? But definitely pay attention to your kids and listen to them. If you want to try something on your own, and if your kids are afraid of their bedrooms at night, do a couple of things. Get a smudge stick. And again, I think by now everybody knows what a smudge stick is. And even if you don't want to smudge the whole house, at least smudge the children's bedrooms at least once a week. So if somebody is in the house, they will not be scaring them while they're sleeping. The other thing that you can do, now Molly's kids were a little too young, the 2 year, well, she was almost 3. and Billy at that point would have been almost 5. But if you take a misting bottle and let them watch you do that. Put sea salt in the misting bottle and shake it up and set it on the floor next to their bed, or if they have a nightstand next to their bed. Tell them that anytime they hear a noise or they're afraid or they think somebody's in the room, just to pick up the squirt bottle and squirt a little bit in that direction. Let the kids have some power getting rid of what's in their bedroom. If you can find blessed sea salt, that even works better than regular sea salt. So there are things that can be done. And like I said, you know, if you look at your kids at night and they have covers over their face, they're afraid of something. So pay attention. I've been getting a lot of letters referring to this type of thing, which I'm loving because I'm remembering some of these things that I did so many years ago. And I like hearing, that everything worked out fine. Um, but questions are starting to pile up too. So I think maybe next week we're going to do questions, and there's quite a few of them. So let's see we'll do that next week. And if any of you have any type of ghost in your house right now from April 26th to May 26th, and both of these are super moons. The 26th is a lunar eclipse. So if any of you have any type of earthbound spirits in the house, you are certainly going to know about that because they will have a lot more energy this month. The other thing is, for those of you that are local or want to make a trip in, June is pretty nice in this area. I will be at a Carousel Museum in Sandusky, Ohio. A lot of ghosts there, and they're letting everybody go through the building and see what they can see. So it should be fun. Go to my website, mariannewinkowski.com, and the information is on that on how to come. So have a great week, and we'll do this next Wednesday. Bye-bye.